Hi, I'm Malak Fuad, and welcome to What I Did Next from ANT Media. On the show, I sit down with a new guest each episode, and we take a deep dive into their lives' most pivotal moments. On today's episode, British-Egyptian actor Khalid Abdalla reflects on his phenomenal acting career and how his own Arab identity has evolved during that journey.
It's not that I see myself as an Arab actor and want to kind of restrict myself to roles that have to be Arab. No. But it is that I am an actor who is an Arab, who lives in a world that has gone through 9/11 through to this genocide, and who sees myself as having certain responsibilities on a cultural and artistic and creative level towards those traumas and how they manifest in the world. That means to really do what I can do, I have to live up to those responsibilities and try and understand how to relate to those narratives to make them as powerful as possible in changing the world towards the one I want to live in.
Khalid Abdalla first became known to many of us with his incredible role on the Kite Runner. More recently, he was on our screens as Dodi Fayed in The Crown and as the Elon Musk Uber baddie in the TV series The Day of the Jackal. But beyond all of these subtle and challenging roles, I was personally really moved by his most recent performance on stage. I caught him in his one-man show Nowhere when I was in London last October. Khalid wrote and performed Nowhere, and this piece of work is a crystallization of his activism, his questioning of his place in the world, and was presented to us in an intimate and small space, allowing us to feel his anxiety and despair at issues he confronted along his journey. We sat down to chat for this episode in December, and we covered so many topics, we're bringing this to you in a two-parter. On our main episode today, we'll talk about his journey, including his performances in The Kite Runner, The Square, The Crown, and Nowhere, as well as how he views them through the lens of his own identity and how this has evolved over time, especially now that he's a father of two. On the second part out next week, we'll go behind the curtain into Nowhere itself, how the play came to be, and the impact of his performance. And then finally, as a special bonus episode only for our members, we'll dig into his process as an actor and how he prepared for his role as Dodi Fayed on The Crown. It's a great series of episodes, and I hope you stay tuned for all of them. As you all know, normally we always have the guests introduce themselves at the top of each episode, and then we get into the conversation.
You know what, though? That's the kind of thing I actually, inside me, I kind of go, oh, God, that's the kind of thing I can't do. No, because really, as an actor, I mean, it's really one thing if you tell me it's not going to be me.
Yeah.
It's a whole other relationship. You know, I know that you know that I know that you know that this isn't really me. It's a very different relationship to this is me.
Yeah.
And whenever the relationship is this is me, something else happens inside me.
Well, yeah, because I mean, I'm sure that being an actor, it must be very freeing, right? Because you're in your body, but as far as you're concerned, you're being somebody else, and so you're projecting this other person, so you feel completely cocooned and transparent and almost hidden from what people are seeing, right?
I don't know. I think there are ways in which what you're saying is true, but I think there are ways in which you explore parts of yourself that are very often not allowed out in your social and your personal life.
Yep.
I think there are ways in which there are other contracts that are constantly lying behind your presence. In the case of me being an Arab actor, it's always kind of, I mean, it's always going to be stark to some degree. What choices am I making in my career? And what do you read about who I am or who you think I am or who I'm, as a result of the decisions that I make? And so I never feel like I'm hiding when I'm acting, to be honest.
Interesting. So you feel like you're showing a layer of yourself.
Certainly. And there are all sorts of negotiations with that. And there are all sorts of negotiations with that self. And then you discover things about yourself. And then you find out which of them you want to hold on to, and or which of them get a bit more courage because they've had an opportunity to be explored in ways that you might not have done otherwise. I mean, I'm reminded very early on when I was, yeah, I'm quite a shy person, or at least that's how I think of myself.
I can see that actually. No, I don't find that
And
surprising.
I didn't spend the majority of my childhood thinking that I would become an actor at all.
What did you think you'd be?
I was really interested in being a doctor.
Like your parents?
Like my parents, but not in any way because they were encouraging me to be doctors. It was just because I witnessed the beauty of their profession, and I thought it was, you know, like I grew up around hospitals. It was a safe place for me. I'm always happy when I'm for
Mm,
me, it's a place of healing.
yeah,
It was also a place where I got to play with the nurses and got to go backstage and got to go into the lab
yeah,
and even got to play with liquid nitrogen, like all sorts of things.
yeah.
And primarily it was also because I was better at the sciences, I thought, until I was around 14, 15. It was, being the child of immigrants. It was the math subjects and the
Of
and
course.
the sciences where my parents were able to help me more and all of that kind of thing, rather than the arts and all of that stuff that they had
Mhm.
never studied, or the history of this country, whatever it was, because growing up here.
I want to read something to you that you wrote. Actor and many things, struggling for a better world. Known by some for my roles in film and The Crown. Known by others for what joins the dots. And of course, you recognize that as your entry for Instagram and X. And obviously, a lot of it is self explanatory, but I'd like to know what you mean by known by others for what joins the dots.
Um, can I answer that at the end of this?
You most certainly can.
Well, no, I mean, as in, I think it'll be clearer towards the end. I mean, I have a range of different identities, is what I feel, both
So
professional, both
my
professional
my
and
next
personal.
my next my next heading, if you can see
Yeah,
this,
yeah. On
on
identity. Who
identity.
are you? That's the question I ask myself regularly.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is the question. So,
I don't know. I mean, I might just about be reaching a point in my life where people who I don't know and have never met are starting to join the dots between the different parts of my identity. But whether it is as an actor, whether it is as a writer, whether it is through my kind of political engagement, whether through my activism or otherwise, or whether it's through particular roles that I've done, each of them tend to kind of project an identity which some people uh, attach very closely to me, whether it's the Kite Runner, or whether it's the Square, or whether it's the Crown, Um, but for me, uh, what joins the dot is really what motivates me in terms of how I try to negotiate my relationship with the world. I am an Arab
mhm,
actor
yeah.
who started his career in this world post 9/11. I graduated from university in 2003, the year of the war in Iraq. And the gaze that comes towards me as an Arab man in this world who is going to engage with the world of media and film and TV is radically different to how I see myself and how I relate to my culture and how I relate to its history. And the opportunities for people like me and you, right? But the opportunities that I have to really explore that identity in a way that I truly recognize are few and far between. They are fractured. fragmented. And so I end up, as far as I can see, with this career over the first 20 years of my life, in which it's very hard to say, oh, from this project, I understand who this person is. Or this project really explores the world that my soul really wants to explore, whether it's in film or art or culture or whatever it is. And really what joins the dots for me is the sense of that, of both the cultural and political causes that I care about, and how I try to bring that into everything that I'm working with. And it's only now that I've written and had my first play on stage that I have done work both in Egypt and internationally that has been recognized, that my political identity is out, that my relationship with Palestine and all of these different parts of me have a space in the public sphere, that I start to kind of find people who kind of, oh, wait, you're the guy that was in the Kite Runner. Wait, but I thought I saw you in the square. Oh, wait, the guy from the Crown is doing this, etc.
A year and a half ago, I interviewed Rami Youssef, of course, from the show Rami, and Bardu, an Egyptian American. And like you, he came of age in 9/11. He had his political awakening in 9/11. And for him, his prism was religion. Your prism was political awakening. And for me, it was a very different experience because I'm significantly older than you both. My political awakening happened at a much earlier phase without the cloud of 9/11. But it's very interesting because 9/11 has hung over so many of my discussions with people, regardless of who they are and what age they're at. With Ayman Mohyeddin, with Clarissa Ward, both similar ages, I believe, to you and Rami, similar feelings of intensity, and we need to act. And everyone's acted or used that catalyst in different ways. For me, what was really interesting is that I was already an adult. I was, at the time, I was 28 years old. I had just left London. I had been living in London most of my life, and I left London on a sabbatical. I came to Cairo with a return. It was August 2001, and I had a return ticket to go back to London for January. And 9/11 happened, and I will never forget. Everyone knew where they were, of course. And I remember thinking, things are now different. Why am I going to go back to London? What will it be like? Will it be different? Yes, it will. I think I'll stay a bit longer here. And now I'm still here. And so we've all had this kind of encounter with it, but in slightly different ways. I knew that my life before in London was, I was not seen, or at least I didn't think I was seen through the prism of being an Arab in the UK and what that meant. But post 9/11, I felt that if I went back, I would suddenly be looked at through a different lens.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's interesting how that has impacted us all, but in slightly different ways, and we've reacted to it in slightly different ways. So I find that interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was at university when 9/11 happened.
Yeah.
And I would say up until the end of university, although I've always had a very strong relationship with my culture and my heritage and all of that, I did sort of believe I was in a colorblind, meritocratic enough system.
Because nothing is overt, right? Nothing is said overtly to you.
Well, I know, but also because that's also the responsibility of your teachers at school, right? Your responsibility of your teachers at school to some degree. I'm not talking about the culture around you, right? But the response is to sort of is to mark you according to how well you write, is
Yeah.
to treat
Yeah.
you as equal to the others,
Absolutely.
as to do all of those kinds of things. But I transition into the world that is not like that at all straight after I finish university, or as I'm finishing. And of course, the difference is stark. Now, of course, all of that was hidden inside me throughout my childhood in ways that I'm spending the rest of my life unpacking and understanding.
Yeah.
The extent to which I had been, uh, you know, culturally trained to hide aspects of myself, to know what silences I have to hold in certain gatherings or in certain places. Yeah, post 9/11, aspects of that confrontation become overt, but aspects of it also become much more dangerous.
Yeah. Tell me, Khalid, your parents, having moved to the UK as immigrants, professionals, but with a history on your father's side and your grandfather's side of activism, how did they approach your upbringing? Did they encourage you to assimilate? Did they say to you, "La, أنت دلوقتي إنجليزي, uh, tone down your Arab side," or was it just something that came from you? Because for me, I went to boarding school in the UK. I went to university in the UK, lived there for many years. I was never encouraged either way by my parents to be either one or the other. It just sort of, I just forged my own path instinctively, whether it was right or wrong. And I just wonder for you, coming from a politically active home, whether you had been guided in one way or the other.
No, I'm a little bit like you. I don't feel like I was guided.
Yeah.
I was definitely, encouraged to have a relationship and love my culture. And our household was always one in which Arabic was spoken, and it was an Arabic household. And also, I spent my summers going to Egypt. But I think what I think what dramatically changed things for me is really that when would I see my family and my parents most alive?
And when was that?
Really, I think it was either in relation to politics, in relation to the region, like
Yeah.
big political discussions that would happen with
Yeah.
people, and and you'd see, and my father, he describes himself as a political animal. I would see him just so impassioned and enthused and kind of holding court and big long conversations into the night. And it was, a really beautiful thing to see. I also saw that with my grandfather, and whenever we would first go to Egypt, they'd be up to whatever time it was, talking and really kind of engaging in those conversations. The other, frankly, was also, as I kind of think about it, was in relation to Egyptian films and Egyptian culture and stuff that that they would be watching.
And it touched their soul. Those are the things that touched their
Exactly,
soul.
and I guess you kind of grow up in that environment, and uh, there are ways in which you don't even recognize how much it's
Mm,
entering
mm.
you. I think, frankly, and I would say this to my father as well, I think there is also the kind of the ghost of the trauma of their leaving.
Yeah. What
And
period did they leave? Was it the
they left in
70s?
1975, and they always intended to go back.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't, I believe, until 1988. So what, 13
That's a
years
very long
later,
time to be away.
it wasn't until 13 years later that they decided that they were staying.
Oh, I see. So they were constantly in that
They were
no man's land of,
they
yeah,
were always planning to go back.
yeah.
So I'm also kind of, I guess, living in that sense of a life that could have been.
Khalid, what I find interesting is I have so many friends that left Egypt after the 2011 revolution. And they all said, "Oh, we're just going for a few years. We'll be back."
Mm.
And to this day, they come back on holiday. They're back, twice a year or whatever. But there's always this conversation of, yes, we'll be back next year. And I know it's just not going to happen. But does it mean that you don't live your life fully in either place? You don't live your life fully wherever you are living. You're always pining for home. Um, I
Well, I
probably
mean,
that's not the
I mean,
case with
look, to
you
be
because
honest, I,
because
I mean,
you're
I have a
yeah
position which I kind of say in relation to 2011 people in general, which is that they're living in exile, most of them, whether inside the country or outside it. I think we've all been exiled from a future
yeah
that we believed was possible.
yeah
And frankly, when I'm in Egypt, I see a lot of people living a life exiled from the one they wanted to be in, whether they were
yeah
for 2011 or not. At the beginning of my life, at the beginning of my life, uh, yes, there were Arab diaspora, right? But nothing like now,
yeah
right?
yeah
And
yeah
every single Arab country there is has a ginormous diaspora, such that, such that, such that the question of who is authentic anymore, because it used to be, I felt for the majority of my childhood that the ones that who had left, right, that me being the children of people who had left, that something was less authentic about me, right? Little did I know, which is what I've really come to believe, is that at some level I was one of the early generations of a new authentic Arab identity, right? Which has the diaspora entirely woven into it. And it was a really very important moment for me when I realized that you have as much of a right to your identity from the periphery as you do from the center, and that those two are constantly in dialogue in a really very important way.
you know Egypt is the perfect example of our region because we were a melting pot. We had Syrians, we had Lebanese, we had Jews, we had Italians, we had Greeks. I mean, going back a century and a half, if not 2 centuries. When we look at our region, we were never countries, we were cities. So someone who would live in Damascus wouldn't think twice about working in Baghdad, wouldn't think twice about moving to Rabat, wouldn't, it
Mm,
was
mm.
all this fluidity of movement amongst us. But I think that the difference now is that instead of staying within our region, we've all gone further away. Um,
I mean,
so we've,
I think the level of displacement now is on another level, and I also think
yeah,
what is also on another level is the sense that, I hate to say this, but how many people don't find it hard to see a future for themselves inside the region?
yeah.
I mean, I have something that I say frequently on a very simple level. It's just stability hold when you don't need to know that your life is great or going to be great, or even that your children's life. You just need to feel that, well, if I keep going like this, well, maybe my grandchildren's life will be better than mine. But as soon as you know and feel deep inside you that not only your grandchildren's life is going to be unlivable in ways that you feel yours is unlivable, but worse, and maybe their grandchildren's grandchildren, then you start to go, wow, why am I putting up with it?
More with Khalid is coming up, including how he thinks about his future roles and the impact of fatherhood. Welcome back. This is my conversation with Khalid Abdalla. Do you feel, Khalid, that you view yourself solely as an Arab, as a man who is of Arab origin, and therefore the acting you do has to reflect that? Or are you somebody who could very well see yourself in a period drama if you were offered that role, or in something completely different to the world that you've been immersed in the last few years?
I used to think that the hallowed ground was a color blindness. I have, through force of my career, really and deeply come to believe that the hallowed ground is what I call colorfulness.
Mm-hmm.
that it is not an achievement that I want to chase myself, to be in a period drama in which my identity is hidden. I would love to be in a period drama in which everything that is challenging about my identity is welcome. I'm not interested in being a color on screen that makes things look diverse when actually the aspects of my culture and how that reflects itself in politics is treated as something we're not going to talk about because it's uncomfortable. It's by being part of the conversation and being included in the history that I am actually invited as the fullness of who I am and what our culture has to give. It's not that I see myself as an Arab actor and want to kind of restrict myself to roles that have to be Arab. No. But it is that I am an actor who is an Arab, who lives in a world that has gone through 9/11 through to this genocide, and who sees myself as having certain responsibilities on a cultural and artistic and creative level towards those traumas and how they manifest in the world. That means to really do what I can do, I have to live up to those responsibilities and try and understand how to relate to those narratives to make them as powerful as possible in changing the world towards the one I want to live in, that does not result in me and my children or people that look like me being killed as if it doesn't matter.
So for that to be your reality going forward, what is the reality of that? Does that mean that more of the roles are going to be created by you, friends, people that
Yes,
look
it has
like
to
you,
be.
talk like
Well,
you,
it doesn't have to be
as
people that
opposed
look
to
like me or
you?
talk like me, but it does have to be people that care about and it's a little bit like what you hopefully
Yes.
experienced when you came and saw my play, where people of all backgrounds who
Yeah.
came into a kind of political alignment around the narratives that were being shared there and how it relates to their own history. I had people from all over the world, all shades of brown, black, and white, and everything else in between, right? Who said, "Oh, this really is so much like my history or my politics or my family." Because I don't believe that being an Arab is simply about it's the political intersections that come into our identity
Yeah.
are not just about our skin color or our language, right? There are all sorts of other things in relation to the politics of the world that really hit hard in our region.
And not just that, but I think, if you're a child born in the Caribbean who is can also relate to this, because you've also got this juxtaposition of identities and location and so on. So it's not just being an Arab, you can only tell your story to other Arabs and they will relate. It's much bigger than that.
Absolutely.
Have you given thought to where you go next or
Uh,
what you do next?
yes, all the time. I never stop.
Because when we began this conversation, Khalid, you talked about having gone past several important thresholds.
Mm.
So one of them is the play that you managed to do it, but I'm assuming that the thresholds are all connected.
Yeah, exactly. The thresholds are all connected. I mean, on a deep level, I feel now there is a public alignment between my position as an actor, my politics, and my multiple creative identities.
And that's a satisfying place, Khalid.
It's
That must
it's
be satisfying for you.
it's very nice to be here. I
Yeah.
guess I'll be satisfied once I feel like I have lived up to the promise of that journey. What I feel is I've been walking towards the possibility of this moment for the last 20 years since I graduated from university, hoping that this moment was possible. And now I feel like I've begun here. And now I want to walk the rest of that journey.
Do you have trouble stopping and smelling the roses as a person? Because I feel that you are so hard on yourself.
I think
You've got to
that's
just chill a
true.
little bit.
That's true.
You've done an incredible thing with
Well,
this play.
that's very
I mean, and
kind.
I'm not. We haven't
Yes,
even
no, no.
spoken about your imbuing Dodi Fayed, which I want to get to in a minute. But you have to be able to stop and say, "Wow, I did it," because you really did.
Well, thank you. No, no, I do feel that. I do feel that. Um, but I guess I also feel it's the first, you know? And
And
so
that's fine.
you asked me what's
You're in a
next.
hurry.
Yeah, I'm certainly impatient.
I want to change tax just slightly. It's something you mentioned early on, which is fatherhood.
Mm.
And you have talked about how when you became a father for the first time in 2016, you wanted to live your life slightly differently, or what does it mean to you now in today's world?
So my son was born in 2016, which with a very dark year.
Yeah.
For me, in terms of the situation in Egypt, it's the year in which I felt I had to leave and return to London. It was the year of Brexit. It was the year of Trump. My son is called Nalwar, one who brings light. My daughter is called Aya. The joke is Umzilat Alina. She came as a surprise. And and
And you
you
have a
know,
very I know your wife is English. How did she was she on board with Arabic names? Was it comfortable
oh,
for
she was
her?
the one that suggested both of them,
Is
actually.
she really? And
The funny
does she
thing
speak
is
Arabic?
I'm born in Glasgow, but she's born in Abu Dhabi.
No way! I didn't
Uh,
know she was born there. That's so funny.
and no, no, she speaks Arabic, not because of her time in Abu Dhabi, actually, but she speaks Arabic, and we've been together now almost 24 years. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but no, I mean, parenthood is um, indescribable in terms of how much it's part of me and has. Um, but also, I mean, I think one of the incredible things about being a parent, and this really has changed me, is really watching the way that children learn, is
Mm-hmm.
watching the way that children play.
Yeah,
One of the things that one of the things that I think is beautiful about parenthood, and especially especially small children, they're only 7 and 8 still, but it allows parts of you that had been dormant to wake up. You know, you start to play in a way that you haven't played
that's
for
right.
years.
And it's because it's so innocent, and you see things freshly again, don't you? Which
Exactly. I
you
mean,
sort of
it's
forget
one of
about.
those
Yeah,
things where the whole
yeah,
cycle, we were talking about the
yeah,
intergenerational aspect of things.
yeah,
And you
yeah.
relate to your own childhood suddenly again, you relate to your own parents again, and you go back in all of these cycles, which came from me also at a moment of which I was processing and trying to understand my history and my relationship with Egypt, and this moment that we had lived between 2011 and onwards, and all of these things. And I we have the illusion and the partial truth of being parents to our children, but I think at the same time they parent us. There's a part of us that grows with them, and that they are the ones that bring to us. And that's definitely been my experience of parenthood.
So my children are much older. I've got two boys, a 19-year-old and a 17-year-old.
Wow.
And I'm always fascinated to think, well, how much have we done? Or how much of their upbringing is due to what we instilled in them, and how much is it that it's just them, that's who they are.
Yeah.
The more you read, the more that people say, well, certainly when they're teenagers, that their peers are much more important than their parents.
Mm.
But you kind of you don't really, you just kind of do your best and then hope for the best. I think that's the way to look at it.
one of the good pieces of advice I was given early on is that good parenting is closer to gardening than it is to carpentry. Right? You don't get the
You
hammer out and the
plant.
saw and try and make them into
Yeah.
whatever it is. You kind of like, okay, this plant needs this kind of sunlight and it needs this
Yeah.
soil
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
needs this water then, and you gradually try and
Absolutely.
understand, you know?
I want to close up with a very quick, fun,
I'm
a
terrible at
segment
quick
that
fire, but I'll do my best.
if you had to choose another profession, what would it be?
Doctor or architect?
What's your favorite activity?
That's a really hard question. Spending time with my kids.
And playing with them, like you said earlier,
Yeah,
being silly.
spending time with my
Yeah.
kids and playing, being with my family.
What's your least favorite activity?
Uh,
You're good on the deep stuff, Khalid. You're
I
not good
know
on the
I'm
superficial
terrible
stuff.
on I'm
That's
terrible on this
hilarious.
stuff. I mean,
Learning lines.
no, I love learning lines. No, I love learning lines. Ask me another one.
No, you must have something you don't like. You don't like
No,
to
I
do the
have many.
dishes.
No,
You
I
don't
have
like.
many things that I don't like. My one of my least. I don't. The very end of cleaning the kitchen.
What do you mean the very end, as opposed to the beginning?
Once you've cleaned, or once you've cleared up all the plates, and I don't know, you've set the
Yeah.
dishwasher on, and then you've still got some stuff on the surface.
I think the worst is the beginning, when you realize how much you've got to do.
Oh no, I'm fine
Isn't
at the
that the
beginning.
worst?
I'm fine at the beginning. It's when it looks like it could be clean, but there's still just that final stuff. That's what I really like. Yeah. That's one of my least.
And you want to get to bed.
That's one of my least favorite things in the world. Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, when your kids get old enough, they can do it for you. They're still a bit young.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a hard time.
Oh, I have a hard time with quickfire rounds.
No, come on.
We should maybe do this at the end again, shouldn't we? And then I can give you all the answers quickly, and then I can do them all quickly for you once I've had a chance.
Well, just think. I mean, from what I've seen, you have a hard time stopping and smelling the roses, and enjoying your success and enjoying where you are.
Yeah, I have a hard time knowing how to rap.
That I think I can accept that one.
Yeah.
Okay, the last question, and I think it's not a question, it's the last statement. I get joy from.
Oh, I get joy from being in connection with people. I get joy from beautiful conversation.
Lovely.
Yeah.
That was my conversation with the actor and activist Khalid Abdalla. Next week, we'll dive into his one-man play Nowhere, so stay tuned for that. What I Did Next club members get to hear more about how Khalid gets into his roles, particularly how he transformed into Dodi Fayed on The Crown. That episode will be out soon. If you're not yet a member, now is your chance to subscribe on either Apple Podcasts or on our website. You get a free trial and it will unlock a ton of extra content. Thank you for joining me today. You've been listening and watching What I Did Next from A&T Media. I'm Malak Fuad, and the show is produced by Chirag Desai. See you again next week.